Where I see things going in the next 6 months is even more activity in the e-commerce area, particularly in the Amazon area. We are actually starting to see so much money come into the market chasing the Amazon assets, and so many new aggregators that we think the heat may be getting a little too hot, so to speak.
Hello and welcome to Humans of Flippa, the show where we talk to the real-life buyers and sellers of digital assets. Today's guest is David Carroll. He's the CEO of DJC Digital, which is a brokerage boutique helping investors acquire digital properties. Today we'll chat to David about his years of expertise and how he uses Flippa to help his clients find success.
David, thank you so much for joining me on Humans of Flippa.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Brad.
I normally start with asking people how they describe themselves, whether they're a business broker, entrepreneur. How do you sum up what you do?
I describe myself and my company as we are primarily M&A advisors to the digital marketplace. We do also have a sell-side brokerage, which is a secondary aspect of our business, but primarily M&A advisors.
Cool. So you run DJC Digital. For someone who's very new to this whole world and this industry, in layman's terms, could you describe what a typical day looks like for you at DJC?
Well, a typical day involves mostly me and my team speaking to potential sellers of digital assets. So the way that our business works is we have investor clients that hire us to go out into the marketplace and identify businesses that meet their investment criteria. Our team develops actionable searches to identify those companies. We perform outreach, and then we generate meetings with those prospects. We'll be talking to those prospects. About 75% of my day is speaking to those prospects, evaluating how they match our clients' criteria, and trying to make a match with our client. And then the rest of our day is we're learning about all the software tools in the marketplace that sellers are using, and we ourselves use a lot of those tools for our prospecting efforts. So that's sort of a typical day.
Yeah. And what inspired you to start this company? Did you find a gap in the market?
Yeah. Yes. I think that's exactly what happened. Actually, you didn't ask this, but I'll answer the question this way.
Yeah.
When I started this business initially, Flippa actually kind of plays prominent in that story. I was pivoting to a new career and chose to initially to explore investing in digital assets, online companies, and I began to. This is back in 2016. I began to explore different marketplaces for identifying those companies, and Flippa, of course, at that time was one of the significant places where you could identify online companies for acquisition. I did, in fact, buy my first online company. It was a print-on-demand company through Flippa, which began my whole brokering journey. By going through that process, I identified what I thought was an opportunity for me to apply my skills to the brokering industry. I have a pretty long. I actually grew up in a real estate family, so I think the similarities between real estate and digital assets is pretty well understood. So I was familiar with the concept from my background. I have an investment banking background as well, and I ran a email marketing agency for 12 years. So I was able to combine all those skills into the way that I executed my sell-side brokerage. And in doing the sell-side brokering, I did identify what I thought was a gap in the market. I met with a lot of buyers of assets who felt that they were underserved, didn't have enough tools to make smart choices. Many of the investors that I spoke with felt that the good assets went too quickly on Flippa and elsewhere because there was a lot of competition for those assets. And so the buyers that I was working with wanted to know, was there a way of having tools where they could take action in the marketplace themselves rather than just relying on sell-side brokerage listings. And so I developed at that time this is in 2018, a buy-side outbound search process for these digital companies to match with my buyers, and developed a service, a paid fee service, which we still operate today. It's much more sophisticated now than it was then. But our clients hire us to go out into the market, find those assets, connect them with the prospects, let them evaluate the opportunities, and then pull the trigger on those that match their criteria.
Yeah, so there's that educational component to what you do, where a lot of people might have that information gap, perhaps when they're wanting to get their foot in. What's one thing that people typically don't understand before they approach you, and where do you think you help the most?
There's a few things. One of the things that's curious, I guess, about off-market properties is that a seller or potential seller, a prospect who we are reaching out to and asking if they're interested in selling their business. Many of those people are not in the mindset of selling their business. Their business is not for sale. And so that person behaves in a rather different way than the sell side, listing prospect who has already decided they want to sell their business. They've reconciled with the emotional part of it. They're ready to let go of the business. And they've often made preparations, financial and other preparations to let go of the business prior to the listing. So one of the things that happens is we have to educate often our seller prospects about what it means to sell their business. There's an emotional component. There's a financial preparation. There's other preparations. And so our buyers have to be a bit more patient sometimes as we guide the seller through that process. And so it can take a little longer to get the seller to the place where they're ready to actually execute the transaction. That's one important thing that we see as a difference between the sell side activity and the buy side activity.
Yeah, we've kind of found here at Flippa that there is a difference between just a typical business owner and someone who would consider themselves an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur's kind of got that always ready to sell mindset. So we often tell your typical business owner that perhaps has built this business from the ground up, it's their passion project, that if they have that always ready to sell mindset, then they're not going to miss out on any opportunity, because there are so many people that are just ready to buy. And if you're not ready to sell, then you miss out, unfortunately. But it's interesting that you mentioned that emotional component, because a lot of what we see, instead of the entrepreneur, it's one person with one business. They've had it for 10, 15 years. It's an e-commerce. They're selling their own developed products, and trying to get them across the line to sell and convince them that it's a good opportunity can be quite the task.
Yeah, it is. We're pretty experienced with it. We're part M&A advisor, part therapist. And we deal with all kinds of sellers. Sellers who have created kitschy little cottage industry type businesses, and then we deal with sellers who have very large, SaaS tools for sale, or even large agencies, large e-commerce businesses. So we have to wear a lot of hats in order to make those relationships.
Yeah, and how do you fold Flippa into your business strategy? Are you always using our platform, or are you kind of going off platform sometimes?
So we are an approved broker on Flippa, and the way that we currently use Flippa is to identify buyer leads for certain properties that we have in our sell side brokerage. So, for example, we will evaluate whenever a new sell side listing comes in, our internal capabilities to promote that listing. We have a quite large database of buyers and sellers. But for this purpose, buyers, we will evaluate whether we think we have enough of the type of buyer that might be interested in the property that we're promoting. And we'll usually take a crack at marketing that property using our internal resources first.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a period of time, if we feel we're not getting enough activity, we will then list the property on Flippa. And our experience has been tremendous in terms of relying on that activity. We know that if we put a listing on Flippa that we're going to get a lot of qualified prospects. And we've also noticed, Brad, that the quality of those prospects has been increasing significantly over the last couple of years. When I first bought my first business that I mentioned earlier on Flippa, I found it to be, a bit of a Wild West, right? Lots of different types of buyers and sellers, some of whom were relatively inexperienced, and many of whom were inexperienced. Now we're seeing a lot more experienced buyers on Flippa, and it's very encouraging.
Yeah, I think that just comes down to seeing the industry evolve, especially with COVID. I think the post-pandemic e-commerce world or the online business world, the digital asset world has really made people take it upon themselves to be educated. And a lot of people don't see Flippa as that resource for education. We have so much that we could show people, all our account managers, all the tutorials, even businesses like yours that are Flippa adjacent, just have a lot of tools where they can educate other people. So I see a post-pandemic boom where now there's so much information out there, people more experienced. A lot of people in the pandemic were forced to really throw themselves into the online world just to survive. So it's great that people are more educated, because a little bit of education goes such a long way. And it's great that you've actually seen that progress with Flippa, because even since I've been here, I've only been here for about 6 months. It's changed a lot. People are really a lot more professional, and I think taking it more professionally, like it is a job instead of a side hustle. So I'm excited to see where it goes in the next 6 months, the next 6 years. Where do you yourself see this industry going and evolving in the future?
Onward and upward, mostly. One of the things that we've seen that's really transformed our business in the last 18 months is we are spending a lot more of our effort servicing buyers of e-commerce businesses, particularly Amazon-focused e-commerce businesses. When I first started the business, about a third, the buy side of our business, about a third of our clients were buying SaaS properties, 1/3 were buying content properties, and 1/3 were buying e-commerce properties. And we developed skills in all of those areas, and I was very happy with the diversification we had in the business. Since the so-called aggregator boom, and we do have a large number of clients that I would classify as FBA, Amazon FBA aggregators. There's a lot of capital in the market chasing particular types of assets, specifically the Amazon heavy e-commerce businesses. So we have been focusing a lot on that market, while still trying to maintain, some focus on those other categories. Where I see things going in the next 6 months is even more activity in the e-commerce area, particularly in the Amazon area. We are actually starting to see so much money come into the market chasing the Amazon assets, and so many new aggregators that we think the heat may be getting a little too hot, so to speak.
Okay.
Multiples are going up quickly. It's harder and harder for aggregators to acquire these good Amazon businesses at an attractive multiple, and so something has to happen there. Either because at some point those multiples are too high to be economic. So we're seeing more and more competition, frankly, and that's where a business like ours, we're receiving more inbound inquiries than ever, because aggregators and private equity firms need a leg up on identifying and quickly getting themselves in front of these sellers, which is exactly what our business is designed to do.
Yeah, fantastic. Seems like you're in a great position for it to have another mini boom, perhaps. Yeah, I'm excited to see it transform and to learn more. So thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for the time, Brad. Have a good evening.